Welcome to the Busted Knees and Pretty Trees podcast. We want to thank everyone for coming along, and if this is your first episode, well, much like Indiana and the Midwest right now, this one's going to be hot and humid. We have a special guest, and he's pretty damn serious about conservation. It's going to be a refreshing palate cleanser after last week, hearing of the river worms sucking on the bottoms of Brad's feet.
Gross.
I was crying over slightly scorching the tender undersides of my soft feet on the hot rocks and trails in Charlevoix a weekend or two ago. But if I didn't know any better, Brad's kayak trip would have made me think he was a GI paddling up the Mekong Delta in 68. We all have our Vietnams. Let me know if you need to talk, Brad.
Appreciate that.
Let's get everyone in here and see if he's okay. Bradley Greer and Patty Richardson.
Hello.
Hello.
Guys.
How are you?
We have a real deal. I'm great.
Good.
We have a real deal guest today.
Yeah.
The nature of his work is nature. He works for the Nature Conservancy with the mission to preserve our lands and wildlife near and afar. He's the Northern Indiana Stewardship Lead, and along with a team, he helps manage over 8,000 acres of land in Indiana.
Whew.
Oh, and let's not forget, a herd of bison. That's right. We are thrilled to have him here, and we can't wait to pick his brain. Please welcome Trevor Edmonson.
Yo.
Hello.
Trevor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Welcome,
so much
Trevor.
for volunteering your time to our little podcast here.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to chat with you and share.
Dude, it sounds like you're going to be right up our alley,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I cannot wait I have not been able to wait for this conversation for a few weeks now. I'm not going to lie.
We've been staring at the questions and kind of doing a little bit of study and just waiting for you.
Well, I hope I can deliver for you. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot. There's a lot to say about nature, so and what we're doing here. So yeah.
Darn
and,
right.
where we generally like to start, we kind of ask everyone, because this is a podcast about, going out, enjoying the outdoors, learning about it, exploring it. There's kind of ultimately something that brings us all back out there. Clearly, you love the outdoors. You're always out there. So what is it that one thing that always brings you back?
I think for me, there's just so much to learn. I feel like whether it's in my backyard, my local trail, or here at work, whether I'm on the clock or off the clock, I'm just constantly learning. And so everywhere I look, there's something, man, I'm never going to learn all I need to know about that. And so my hobbies, everything is all tied to just gleaning a little bit more. I think I admire kind of like all the naturalists from back in the day.
Man.
And just like, man, what a wealth, and it's...
Seriously. They put in the work.
Yeah.
We did an episode last season at some point, we did one on Johnny Appleseed, John Chapman. And Travie J just enlightened us to all kinds of stuff. And man, what an animal.
Just to really be out there in the thick of it.
Yeah, I got lots of books, and there's so many resources these days, but nothing's a replacement for just being outside. So and staying and being curious. So.
Well, you seem to be following in their path. I'll start calling you Trevor Appleseed from here on out. Okay. We'll just start busting that nickname out for you. And I'm a nickname guy. I like my nicknames for everybody. T Trevor Appleseed.
I got one more question for you. I've listened to your YouTube videos and I've heard you say it a few times. I've heard a few people say it, and I still am not sure what I'm hearing when I hear Kankakee Sands. How do you say that?
So, the way us locals say it is Kankakee Sands.
Kankakee.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Named after the Kankakee River. Now, the word Kankakee is a more modern pronunciation of likely an indigenous word, maybe Akiki. It's still somewhat of a mystery. All we have is kind of the French journal kind of translation of that and old maps, but yeah.
There's a lot of history to that era.
So much.
You can see.
Now, we did an episode last week about Petoskey stones, and what I found is that if you're native, if you've been out there looking for rocks, you can call them Tosky stones, so you can shorten that. And what I've noticed that is through our little intro and us hanging out a little bit before the episode, you were calling it K Sands. Is that something that we have to kind of work ourselves up to?
That's kind of an internal TNC thing, that how we talk about it in emails. It's easier to type and remember, but
you'd be popping off K's all day if you did.
Yeah. So
we will refer to it just as the Kankakee Sands, not K Sands. We will lay off that.
We've got to go through it.
Oh, there's the News Panther.
Okay, there's the News Panther. Let's roll, B-Rad.
We'll get back to Trevor later, but we got a couple News Panther stories.
Well, and I have a feeling
one this week.
Yep.
Yeah. Good.
And I have a feeling this story is going to be near and dear to Trevor's heart, or at least the idea of it, because it involves invasive species.
Let's go.
I know when I was like watching the videos of the fields, and I kept thinking those fields look really nice and like there's not a lot of invasive species in them. This story comes from Grand Teton National Park, though, where invasive quagga mussels were discovered on a boat. So this mussel is a freshwater mussel. It's an aquatic bivalve mollusk that has an average lifespan of 3 to 5 years. This is just a little bit about what this mussel is. You may have heard of its very close relative, the zebra mussel.
Yep.
I know I've always heard about those being in the Great Lakes and being an invasive species. This mussel is indigenous to the Dnipro River drainage in Ukraine, and the zebra mussel is also from the Ukraine-Russia area, is where they're native to.
Okay.
So how do they get here?
On ships, kind of like this instance, they found it on a boat. But luckily, in this particular instance, they found it on a boat at an aquatic invasive species checkpoint.
Say that again.
Yeah. Or AIS for short. So I'll say AIS.
Better.
So it's like any out-of-state boat, any boat that it gets registered in Wyoming or comes in has to go through a checkpoint to get inspected for these mussels. And even local boats have to go through checkpoints, even if you're like not left the area. So what quagga mussels? Have you ever heard of quagga mussels, Trevor?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they are in Lake Michigan, and
oh really?
Yeah, as well.
I assume that's where, just like the zebra mussels, if I remember correctly, those were brought in St. Lawrence Seaway to the Great Lakes, and then kind of
it was the St. Lawrence Seaway
started going everywhere else. What I'm curious about though is what body of water in the Teton area was this boat found on? Like what's the major river? What's like?
Well, remember when we were there at the campground and the ranger station, there was a marina there. Yep. Like you can bring your private boat to any of those lakes.
Maybe just a boat that was on Lake Michigan. They traveled to the Tetons and.
Yeah, it was just some dude like going there to recreate, bringing his boat.
Wow.
Yeah, and luckily it got caught at the checkpoint. So what these mussels do, because I've always heard about zebra mussels and mussels in the Great Lakes causing problems. So they can cause a couple different problems. They can clog power plants. They can clog wastewater treatment facilities because they're like clumpy rock structures that just kind of grow on each other.
Yeah.
But the main thing they eat large amounts of phytoplankton and zooplankton. And as you may or may not know, I think we talked about this before, phytoplankton is responsible. It's like at least 50% of the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
And like they say that could be one of the reasons why Earth even has oxygen or got started to begin with was from phytoplankton.
No shit. Huh.
So when the phytoplankton's removed from the water, it lowers the oxygen levels in the water and allows sunlight to penetrate deeper, which causes more vegetation to grow. And that just kind of...
Phytoplankton, are those single-celled organisms just floating around, or are they...
I think they're single-celled organisms.
Damn good question, Travis. I don't even know what that is. I mean, I do know what that is.
I don't know. What's the, stuff that blue whales eat? They swallow up krill or something? But I think
and like phytoplankton, I think plankton is sometimes you'll see the blue waves, like the water turns blue when it comes in contact.
Oh, the bioluminescent?
Yes. Gorgeous.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. So removing the phytoplankton causes its vegetation to grow, which that takes more oxygen from the water, which causes fish and other animals, they struggle to breathe because there's no oxygen. And the waste from the mussels can also lower oxygen levels, and it can make the water more acidic and create toxic byproducts.
And Trevor, to your knowledge, that's going on in Lake Michigan. Do you know like what the impact is, or Brad?
I think the way you laid it out is similar to what's, historic. It's, the zebra mussel's already there too. So yeah, I think, the efforts, certainly you would imagine the local fish populations would be somewhat impacted by that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're taking up resources from something else,
Always.
Yeah. Because it said because it's such a delicate food chain and water, whether it's saltwater or freshwater, and everything I looked up about phytoplankton is they're such an integral part to the whole food chain in a water source. And these mussels come in and just mess it all up. Like it just wreaks havoc on the whole water source.
What's it like maybe you'll get to it, but what's it like in terms of conservation or trying to reverse that, whether or not it's in Tetons or Lake Michigan or anywhere else?
It's really hard because it seemed like there's not a great way to get rid of them. There's like physical removal, which obviously is very labor intensive and challenging. And there is, or if it's like a reservoir, they'll just let the water levels drop and expose them, and then they die off.
Oh.
But you have to pretty much drain the water source or like stop a river from flowing.
Seems pretty drastic.
Another one that is kind of crazy, and I feel like I've seen this before, they'll put like black mats over the water to block all the sunlight. So everything dies. But then there's all the vegetation and everything dies.
I guess it's like a natural forest fire. Burn it all down and start again.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's like a natural.
Yeah, just like it, Travis. You got it.
It's kind of, last week we talked about miticides killing the mites that are killing the bees. Well, there's mollusks. Oh, this is a hard one to say. Molluscides.
Great.
Molluscides.
MC.
They're copper-based pesticides. There's a few different ones, but obviously I'm sure like that's probably a last resort. That seems like it might, because it was kind of weird. It said they can't survive in copper compounds are toxic, which I think a copper is also toxic to humans too.
Yeah, it is.
So I would imagine like some of these molluscides are a last resort. Maybe I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Man.
But like bottom line, it seems like it's hard to get rid of them. So that's why places like Grand Teton has these checkpoints, because Wyoming's one of only 5 states that do not have quagga mussels.
Oh.
I mean,
what are the other 4? Do you know?
I did not see that.
Well, I do. One more question is, like, when you have the Tetons, maybe it's because it's a smaller body of water and you can kind of regulate. Go ahead.
Yeah, the good thing is, like, it didn't make it into Tetons.
Right. Yeah.
Like, they stopped it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is smaller.
Why do these sorts of things continue to come even this far in? Like, I assume that there's got to be a checkpoint coming from the Atlantic into the St. Lawrence.
Well, yeah, but like they say, safety rules are written in blood. They like by time it was already spreading, it was probably too late to. Then they were like, we got to set up checkpoints to make sure people aren't bringing.
Safety rules are made in blood?
You've never heard that before?
No, that is a fantastic quote, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First dummy.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
We should probably make the ladder. Then you make the ladder safe for just that one guy. Sacrificial lambs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a good
We're
one.
restricted by the dumb.
Not restricted, right? We're benefiting from the dumb in some cases.
Well,
that's
not
interesting.
Yeah. So to cap it off, what they did was, I imagine the guy had the option maybe of like, well, okay, I'm just going to take my boat and leave. But they put it in basically quarantine for 30 days. They decontaminated it. They sealed it up. and put it in like dry storage for 30 days. The mollusks that they found were dead because they were out of water for so long, I'm guessing. But still, it's like it's not worth the risk of.
Crazy question, but do mollusks spread because of sex or breeding, or do they spread because of spores or something along those lines? Do you know?
I think because part of the mollusk side stuff was that it can attack. I think it said eggs.
Oh, so they are sexual beings.
Yeah. I didn't look that up. I don't know for sure.
That'd be a weird Google search.
Well, yeah, it's pretty amazing that it came all the way from the Dnipro River in Ukraine and
there's
made its way, skipping, boat to boat.
Yeah, holding on tight.
Yeah, all the way over here.
But it's kind of crazy because, there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, a lot of the invasive species, that's how we learned about the Guam kingfisher. That brown snake was on a World War II boat going to Guam.
Have you guys talked about the spotted lanternfly yet? Because you guys are on the front lines right now. They're near the Ohio border there. So, it's pretty much the same kind of story. It's a lot of railroads and RVs are moving that sucker west. And, how are you going to, it just takes one boat or one RV to move it across several states. So it's hard
it's crazy.
Hard to manage that.
Dude, I don't know about over in your area, but there's billboards up and down every interstate here. If you see a spotted lanternfly, kill it and let somebody know. It's wild.
It's not that big yet here, but in the conservation community, we're all about it, and we're trying to locate its host plant because it's like that's where we're going to find it first, likely. But
do you know what it is?
Tree of Heaven.
Tree of Heaven.
Yep, for the spotted lanternfly. But I think, like I said, in Indiana, I know some RV parks, that kind of thing, and so a lot of those are near natural areas and stuff, and truck stops would probably be a great spot too, going in and out.
You just never know. Like, we just make such an impact on everything around us, and even when you're, I'm sure these dudes in RVs, maybe they're not trying to destroy stuff, but it's just crazy how fast it happens. To Travis's point, coming all the way over from Ukraine, it's just. That was the mussel, but where does the spotted lanternfly, where's that originating from?
I don't know that one. I haven't Googled that.
Well, God damn it, Trevor.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I should know that, but.
No, what we do on this podcast, we call it Drive By Science. We just make a guess and say, we think that's it.
Later on Blue Sky.
It might be this.
No, that'd be interesting to know. It just blows my mind, like how many things we are just how nature works. It can be its own worst enemy.
China and Vietnam.
Vietnam, dude.
Yep.
No shit.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Trevor, though. We're on the front lines. We'll take hits for you, brother. All right. I'll go hunting these things for you.
Yep.
So do you try to keep the Tree of Heaven out then if you find that?
Oh, yeah, it's an invasive species itself, the Tree of Heaven. So, if we see it, we were going to treat it anyway, but often like along railroad right-of-ways or old homesteads or, it's an ornamental plant that people like to plant. So,
when I looked it up, it looks kind of like a house plant.
Yeah. But it can escape and it, gets real vigorous, that plant. So we want to get rid of it anyway, but but my dad's a truck driver, and he actually had training about the spotted lanternfly because they go into the zone out east where it's just so, I think people are seeing thousands of them, in a day. And so you're supposed to be able to check your semi before you come. But
that's awesome.
If you look at certain semis on the interstate, you'll see some of them have a sticker that says spotted, something about the lanternfly on it.
Huh.
They need to come up with like a detection system as they're passing under. They can scan it.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
But yeah, so this is just an all-around good reminder. Invasive species hurt everything. So when you go to a lot of these preserves or a lot of parks, especially in the parking lot when you're walking in, you'll see like the shoe scrubbers to scrub your shoes off. Yeah. That's what this is trying to stop. It's keeping that Tree of Heaven out of your local preserve, things they don't want there that are going to take over and cause a lot of problems. So it's a thing to take seriously. Don't try to skip checkpoints, clean your shoes, follow whatever rules that preservation has. It's super important.
Yeah, when you get your gear back off the trail or wherever you went, your gear, your truck, your boat, just clean it. Clean it.
I do want to give it, they didn't mention the inspector by name, but these mollusks were smaller than the width of a pencil, and this guy found him on the boat. So shout out to him. That's awesome.
Yeah, big shout out. I didn't realize they were that small.
Well, I think these just were. They are a smaller mollusk, but it seems like that's pretty small.
Just so tough to get them all.
Yeah,
that's why it'll just be a never-ending battle. You know?
Yeah.
But, there's a News Panther again.
Well, okay, Brad, nicely done. News Panther done. One story laid in. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't love it. I'm tossed.
Well, at least it was a story about them catching it before
That's right.
Got into the lake.
I'll hang me old hat on that.
That's good. That one story was great, but we have Trevor to fill that second story void.
Yeah.
And we've got a ton of questions for him.
Yep.
And we can't wait to get into it. So let's do.
Yep.
Yeah.
To kick things off, let's zoom out, big picture of kind of where you work, and let's talk about what Kankakee Sands and where all that began in terms of its restoration and kind of the history of it, and then how you got involved.
Oh man, there's a lot there.
Well, I kind of wanted just to give you the big question and just let you pick it apart as you will.
Sure. Well, I will tell you a little bit about the history of our site there at Kankakee Sands. It's a privilege to work here. I think the overall concept is, you guys have, and probably some of your listeners have been to the big national parks, been out west. It's a lot harder to find those large landscapes east, especially in the Midwest.
Absolutely.
And so, but there's some laws of nature there that the bigger the protected area, the bigger the conservation macro site, the more species you can harbor.
Yeah.
Right. The more processes, the ecological systems are intact. Mm-hmm. And you come to the Midwest, the central Midwest, and a lot of those things have been altered, fragmented, just outright destroyed, right? So
I always think about that whenever I drive down south to Wells County on my family farm. It's just mile by mile grid, everything's 90 degrees. Even the woods are, cut into 90-degree squares and rectangles.
Exactly. It's all cut up. And so you can think about that as like, an island in an ocean, right? A preserve that we might run into is just a little postage stamp and there's not much growing in a cornfield other than corn, right? That's essentially a desert for most things. Yep. And so, the Nature Conservancy back in 1996, saw an opportunity here to connect several pieces into one larger macro site. So we're very interested in big scale biodiversity projects, corridors of habitat, right? Not just that TNC owns, but like adjacent to partners and like thinking big stuff. So there were three pieces here originally: Willow Slough Fish and Wildlife Area, which was established before Kankakee Sands, Beaver Lake Nature Preserve, and Conrad Station Savannah or Conrad Savannah. But they were all here, and here. Like they weren't all touching, right? They weren't all connected. And so we had an opportunity back then to buy about, somewhere around 6,000 acres from Prudential Insurance, of all people. And, they were a large landowner in the area, and they were getting out of this market for whatever reason. And so, it's kind of as simple as that. I mean, is that we wanted to create a connected landscape in this fragmented area. We saw an opportunity. There's a lot of high quality species that we're holding on, here.
And that's the Nature Conservancy that purchased the land?
Correct. Okay. Correct. Yep. And so today, when you come to our site, the southern end of our preserve touches Willow Slough. We surround Beaver Lake Nature Preserve basically, and the Conrad Savannah is our northern edge. So, I mean, we accomplished that goal. And we've added a few things since then to get up to that 8,000 acre.
Overlap into Illinois then? You're right. I think the town name is Morocco, Indiana.
That's the closest town name here.
Okay,
yeah,
and that's about right on the Illinois border, about 2/3 up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, I like to say nature doesn't care about state lines or county boundaries or anything like that. And when you zoom out even further, the Illinois side of the Kankakee Sands region has a lot of great protected areas too. And so I think in total, if you were to zoom out up to the Kankakee River and combine both sides of the state line, there's probably 30,000 acres of protected habitat within a very small area, and pretty wild and high quality stuff,
rare,
right? Yeah. And back in '96, there wasn't a lot. We bought the land, but it wasn't restored yet, right?
Was it like farmland or?
Yeah, it was. There might have been a little bit of grazing, but there certainly was history of grazing in the area, but most of it was row crop. And heavily, altered, right? Lots of tile, lots of ditches and stuff like that. And so we actually sit in the footprint, if we go way back, sit in the footprint of old historic Beaver Lake, which was Indiana's largest inland freshwater lake.
Wow.
Most people don't know that, but if you go on the old maps in the 1800s of Indiana, you're going to see Newton County, a big old lake sitting there.
Yeah. It kind of made me sad hearing about what happened.
Yeah.
It's
all, it's all tied to the greater Grand Kankakee Marsh story, which I'm not sure if you guys have studied that, but there's a great PBS documentary about Everglades of the North, it's called, that highlights that because it was a massive wetland complex from about South Bend over to Momence, Illinois.
Wow.
So massive.
I'm definitely watching that.
Please do.
Write it down.
Beaver Lake is a casualty of that same story and part of that same system. So, tens of thousands of acres, across a huge region, mostly wetland, with black oak savanna and prairie, in a large mosaic complex right there. So, so we sit in that footprint of that old lake bed, and so when we say prairie here, a lot of people just have one definition of what prairie might look like, tall grass, but really a prairie is a mosaic of tall, short, dry, wet, marsh. It's a lot of different things. So our habitat here is diverse, but anyway. Since '96, we've been planting acres and restoring sections of it. And we're doing another 100 acres this winter. So nice. it's like not even quite 100% done, but mostly. So it just took 30 years, no big deal.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you kind of hit on something that I was interested in.
Yeah.
And I know that you did this. I think you guys planted over 600 species of native plant species.
Yeah.
On the area. And so as you guys are buying that property, so now you have the property, what did that look like? Maybe you weren't around, I understand, but in your understanding of it, what did it look like and how those decisions were made? Did you guys do a lot of historical research into the area? Just invite biologists and arborists and other people into it? Or how did that kind of look? How did you decide what you were going to be planting?
Yeah. So, you don't want to just go to, your local nursery and just start buying stuff and throwing it out there.
Tree of angels.
Yeah.
Tree of heaven.
Right. So what you do, and this is a good concept ecology practice for anybody, even in your home, is to what grew there historically. What documentation do you have? Is there old survey notes somewhere, botanical records, in a museum or a university somewhere, books written about the area, right? And then, because you gotta do that little sleuthing, but then also, what are the preserve areas that still exist today? Right. Go get a look at those. Look for context clues. Try to imagine that. There's several books written about the Kankakee area that, that might mention a plant or a bird or something. And so those are good context clues. And then understanding the geology of the area, the soil types and the land use history, what's holding on in those ditches. And so you start to piece together a puzzle, because before we bought this, you didn't have the full picture. All you had was whatever survived all that disturbance, right? Yep. So you're missing some things, but you can look around, so our philosophy here is, we try to preserve as much local genetics as possible. Right. So, you can buy little blue stem from Texas, but little blue stem grows slightly different in Texas than it does in Indiana. So we want to source stuff that is known to be grown locally. So we kind of give ourselves like a 50-mile buffer or so. So if we can source it from somewhere within 50 miles, we feel like that's a pretty good replication of probably what was here. But then there's that genetic component, right? That with climate and stuff and soil types, these plants are already adapted to this area, so it's not a huge jump for them.
I was kind of wondering about the soil. Like, it's been so processed over the years, the topsoil on the actual farm fields. How does the indigenous plant life take well to that? Is it a problem at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem in a lot of restorations in many ways, because the organic material at the top has been lost. A lot of cases, we're pretty sandy here, so it's somewhat forgiving, right? And that the soil was a little bit different. We're at the bottom of a lake, so it was like, it's also a little bit different than what the prairie was originally growing in, too. But then there's the nutrients, right? There's obviously extra nutrients from when you're doing intensive ag that linger and kind of shape. So, you're trying to replicate plant life in soil communities that existed for thousands of years, right? And, that's going to take some time to repair that and reshape that and redevelop it. So even though we're a 30-year-old project now, I mean, we're pretty young as far as nature and geologic time.
What is the expectation, or what is your end goal? And then how far do you think you are to that?
Well, our end goal, I think what used to the philosophy, certainly when I was in college, and I think a lot of people subscribe to, is that we're trying to get to like a pre-settlement condition, right? That was like, that's, we can the word restore is like to some previous state, right? You're restoring some furniture or something, you're bringing it back. But really that doesn't, it's not as accurate today as it once was, because I think we recognize that people were, that's, you're kind of presuming that there was some wild state back in the day. What we know, indigenous people were here for thousands of years. So there's always been a human influence. But two, with climate change and also the disturbance, I'm not bringing the lake back necessarily, I can't replicate what that was, and conditions are different today. So really what our goal is to, preserve, some sort of makeup of species that might have occurred in this area and support as much biodiversity as we can, put all the pieces on the table, and, kind of let them find their role and their niche, that ebb and flow across the landscape. If we provide a big enough landscape in a dry year, more of the dry plants will thrive. In a wet year, if we get a bunch of flooding, we got marshes and wetlands that'll expand out a little bit. You can't do that same kind of behavior on a small, 1 acre piece, but on an 8,000 acre piece, it kind of can breathe a little bit and find its own way. So that's our trying to, reduce friction, to where species can get all the pieces on the table and species can find their spot into the future.
Man, so go ahead, Brad.
Real quick, because I thought this was pretty interesting, to get an idea of the size of Kankakee Sands. It's about a third the size of Manhattan.
Oh, yeah.
Which is 6,363 football fields.
Woo.
It's bigger than Yosemite Valley.
Wow. Okay. Now that's hitting home.
And most state parks range between 1,000 to 5,000 acres. Oh. And Kankakee Sands is 8,400.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's larger than most state parks.
Get it. Nice. Awesome. Thanks for that, Brad. Nice.
Yeah. That's impressive.
What would happen if Indiana was just like, we would like to don you with the state park title?
Hopefully some funding comes with that, but no, I mean, yeah, I think there is a constant juggle in any conservation area, whether it's state owned or private, right? To support recreation and support, just basic, habitat conservation, right? Trying to strike that balance. Our national parks are a great example of that. In Indiana, our fish and wildlife areas are designated a little bit differently than like your typical state park. So, I think we don't call ourselves a park here. We call ourselves a preserve, but we do provide access, across our preserves, more. I think early on in land conservation, this idea was protect it and set it aside and kind of exclude people, right? That was like the early stages. But I think today we really turned a corner and realized that, people need nature more than ever. And that immersive experience, that you can get in a natural area, really inspires people to take action and inspires people to, become conservationists. So we got to be strategic about it, but, inviting people in a smart way is great. So
that's exactly what I say about MLB baseball. It is so hard to watch, find a baseball game to watch. Like, how are you going to get new fans ever? You gotta bring them in.
He's a White Sox fan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We're the best team in Major League Baseball right now. After the break.
Good Lord. Good Lord.
No comment.
Well, hey, Trevor, let me kind of back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about how Kankakee Sands is kind of smack dab in the middle or overlaps with the Beaver Lake. Could you just explain a little bit about that connectivity and how that's important? And as I was reading through your website, I kind of read that you guys have 86 rare and endangered species of animals, insects, everything in your area. And how does that connectivity kind of play into the restoration project or benefiting that restoration project?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, the corridors. I mean, there's a whole whole literature and books written about island biogeography as a theory. And the more connected you are to a mainland, the larger the island is, the more species you can preserve and support. And that exchange of local genetic material is super important. Some of these species won't cross a road. Some of them won't. Certain birds won't nest, under if the acreage isn't right, and so, woodpeckers are pretty particular about the density of trees they'll use. So, Willow Slough to our south is actually 10,000 acres. So, so we're right next there. We share a large border with them. And so, leveraging that and building that out, species are going back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And so we try to blur the lines, even if we don't own it, right? And partner in a way, because it's really about that macro site. TNC has, our signs on one side of the road. DNR's got their side, on the other side. But really, it's a unified approach. And
why wouldn't you want to help each other?
Yeah, it's only better.
Yeah, and that's the same across the state line. We got butterflies flying across the state line just a couple miles away, and plants can blow seeds over here. So it's like we got to really think about it at a corridor macro site level. And like I said, it's just that's really that's your limiting factor to a lot of conservation efforts is size and complexity of your site. So
okay, yeah,
and we've talked a lot about how often, or not often enough, but non-for-profits, I'm drawing a blank on some of them right now, but they'll buy land surrounding like national parks and donate that land to the park to give easements or some kind of access or those kind of stories warm my heart.
Yeah, that's a strategy TNC definitely uses in different places. Sometimes it's easier for us to purchase and hold on to a parcel. We can, less red tape, or, we can move a little quicker, and or we have a relationship maybe, with a landowner that's different than, a partner. And so, but, so you'll see across our holdings or any other land trust, like that is a strategy, right? To we don't need to start from scratch over here. Let's just leverage what other people are doing and make that big impact. Because usually there's great conservation value in that. And
I imagine so.
Yeah,
I mean, it takes a village, right? And in terms of that, like getting rid of those, there are no borders, kind of thing. It makes sense to just cohabitate and work together as a community, trying to bring this environment back to where it once was.
Are you guys
it's got to benefit everyone?
You sharing your science and all your new discoveries with everybody else as well? Just we're all in this together.
Yeah, I mean, here there's a lot of experts that the state has, or we even work with the National Park Service sometimes at TNC, and so like we're working on the same issues, Fish and Wildlife, or any agency, we're going to share the same core values, and often maybe there's a federally endangered species, but TNC might be the prime holder of that habitat, so we want their expertise, and we can do research and management together and collaborate in that space. So
can you speak to what you're working on now? Anything specific?
I mean, so a great collaboration that that we're not shy about talking about is the regal fritillary butterfly.
Oh man, I read about it, dude.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
East of the Mississippi is super rare. It used to be, I think, all the way to the East Coast, but east of Kankakee Sands, basically, it's only on one military base in Pennsylvania, and then it gets real rare. Like we are essentially the furthest east besides that one, and but yeah, that's one that goes across state lines, Illinois and Indiana, in this Kankakee Sands region. It requires violets as its host plant, not just your normal woodland yard violet, but some other conservative violets and stuff. And we have to collaborate we do monitoring together. We work with partners about research and monitoring that one. We have bi-state projects around that species in particular, because it's one that would be real easy to be snuffed out in these isolated populations if we were just all doing our own thing and not thinking about the other hand right over there. So it's a great example, and we don't know what the future of that species is in Indiana, but I feel some responsibility to keep it rolling. So
that butterfly is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I want to see one of these.
I need to look it up.
Regal fritillary.
Spell that, Travis.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
It's got little shades of blue. That thing's beautiful.
Yeah.
I would love to take some photos of that.
I believe if you ever get the Indiana Butterfly Field Guide, I believe it's the cover on that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a field guide I do need.
Yeah.
So while these guys are looking it up, I got tons of questions for you, Trevor. So I'm lighting them off here. Okay. If anybody else wants to jump in, feel free. I'm just too excited. You mentioned that you guys kind of picked this up in 1996. The land has been there forever, obviously. And since then, I think I mentioned that you guys have planted over 600 native plant species across your 8,400 acres. And I mean, to me, like Brad just illuminated how large 8,400 acres is. And I can't imagine, as somebody that has a backyard with a garden, and that sometimes gets quite overwhelming. I just want to ask about like what it takes to maintain such biodiversity, and not just in short glimpses, but over time. I mean, 30 years. What kind of efforts is it as monumental as it is in my head?
Oh yeah, I'd say it is.
Probably more so.
Yeah.
I guess I can't imagine.
I'm not even sure if and I'm not saying we're perfect, because it's we have to pick our priority areas and our battles, and like do the best we can, because we've got a lot of invasive species pressures that are constant. We'll be here forever, so but I think it's a ever-changing landscape. every year is different. The climate is different each year. The rainfall is different, how that works. And we do prescribed fire here that sets the tone, for different things. So yeah, it can be a grind, but I mean, I think what we're doing here is, it's very also fulfilling, right? Even though, you get to see these things and, you dedicate your career to seeing the same acres over and over again. And, say you had a 30-year career, that's 30 summers, to hang out. Yeah. And that seems like a lot, but it goes by fast, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, the rate at some of these trees and some of these things grow like that, it's really not that.
I couldn't imagine it. Watching the video of you standing out in the super bloom or the spring flower bloom, like I could just see this, like your face exuded just like pure like happiness that
proud dad.
Yeah, proud dad. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and, people came before me and will come after. So I tell our team, this is a generational project. We're going to hand this off to somebody. So we need to just make it slightly better, and they can make it slightly better. And hopefully it's protected forever. And, as it goes down the line, we learn more and adapt. Restoration ecology is a pretty young science. Talk about Aldo Leopold and some of the things he was doing. But really, that wasn't that all that long ago. And as a professional thing, Nature Conservancy really got going in the 1950s. Maybe slightly before that, under a different name. But the idea of conservation is pretty young in that way. So,
do you get a lot of morels after a prescribed fire? I've always heard that. I
think it depends on the land history. If it was wooded or, certainly not too much out in the prairie, but definitely a response.
So speaking of the prescribed fires, just, I'll admit that I'm a novice into restoration. I'm a novice into conservation. I mean, I absolutely enjoy it and I support anybody that's been in it or is in it or getting into it. But when I hear prescribed fires, there's like a part of me
Patrick,
well, I'm speaking for me personally at this point. When I hear those sorts of things, I just see, this thing that should be growing untouched or something like that. And it's just my kind of immediate reaction is oh, that just doesn't seem right. But as I did my research into you guys and what's going on there, it seems like Kankakee, what is it?
Kankakee, you had it.
Kankakee. Kankakee. I just want to make sure I'm saying it right for all the homies that are going to shit on me for not saying it right. But it seems to be kind of the cornerstone of what you guys do in terms of restoration. So I guess my question is, could you just kind of walk us through kind of how that's planned out and then how you actually act on it?
And how nervous you are?
It's one of the most fun parts of the job, I'd say, is to work in prescribed fire. It's one of those things that can easily get you hooked into this profession, and then you start learning other things. But it, I mean, it's it's an essential activity for Prairie to burn it. Like grazing, like people, like harvesting, things like fire has always been part of the Prairie landscape. A lot of the plants and the savannas too, the oaks are all adapted to fire. If you go look at tree rings and stuff, there's a lot of prescribed fire that happen.
Really?
And we shut that off. Smokey the Bear, our guy, he for about 100 years we were afraid of fire and didn't do that. But and so we're seeing the repercussions of that today. But all that being said, is it's always been on the landscape, and so we wouldn't have a prairie without fire. There's so many benefits to it. But so when we're doing a fire here, we look at several factors, like where we're working, what's going on there, how much fuel we have, what our goals are for that site, what the invasive pressure is. Some invasives can't handle fire, so that really gives us a nice boost when we get a fire in there. But really the fire return interval is something where, so 8,000 acres, we try to burn the same acre every 3 to 4 years. So doesn't always work, and some acres have had longer intervals, but on average we feel like that's a pretty successful regime of fire for us.
So the invasive plants, well, the native plants are built for fire, like they'll survive it, and then invasive ones they'll just die because
not all of them. There are some that have proven a little resilient, but yeah, a lot of the invasive shrubs have really shallow root systems, and with repeated fire, they just can't establish themselves very well. Or on the other foot, that the natives just are so vigorous in responding to fire that they make it very hard for invasion to happen. They start to take up a lot of that extra real estate. So that's one way. Anyway, so if we pick a unit, and we say, hey, we want to burn it, TNC is very rigorous. We use the federal standards for fire training, and all the strategies that you would see from U.S. Fish and Wildlife or the Forest Service. That's a lot of our staff are trained and actually go out west to fight fires.
Okay.
So we're very, rigorous in that space, and, do fire all year round, depending on what state you're in, what project you're in. So, but here at Kankakee Sands, generally it's in the fall and in the spring, is when historically fire would have happened. We do experiment every once. We're trying to experiment more with like small growing season fires as well. But anyway, so say there's an area that hasn't burned in 3 years, we will mow a burn break around it. So give us, take the tractor out there and mow an edge, a clean edge that we can burn off of. And we have UTVs with water pumpers on them, and we usually have a truck in the front, and we have 2 lines like that. So we build a box. We call it, do a box fire or a ring fire. And so depending on the wind that day, right, you typically start against the wind. So then you get something called a backing fire. So it burns off of your burn break really slowly. Yeah. And so you start to build up that corner to where you have a lot of black. There's no fuel there. It can't really escape. And then you start working your way out around that box. And then by the time the ring connects and your two lines of people connect, there's so much black on the other side that you can just let it rip. And that's when the head fire takes off, and it just, within a matter of seconds, it just rips across there and kind of collapses on itself at that point.
Really? Dang, that's crazy.
And so, and then we'll go around and make sure everything, we have constantly people patrolling the edges, to make sure we're not missing something. If there's a wind shift or an ash that flew across our line, there's people patrolling that. And then we'll do a final check to make sure everything's out within a certain number of feet of our line that we feel great with. We'll look at the weather for the next day to make sure we're not doing anything crazy, weather-wise the next day. And then we're good. And we repeat, and that's a perfect scenario. A lot of our units are complex topographies, and there's a hill here, and there's trees over here, and then there's a wetland, a mud pool, hill. We got to go. We don't get the truck stuck or something. A lot of complexities on fire day. No unit is the same, even if you burned it last year, the weather might be slightly different this year.
That sounds like a fun problem to solve for a day,
Yeah, and we do small units. It could be a couple acres, or we here at K Sands we have a unit that's about 800 acres. So we've lit that off before.
Dang, that's crazy.
800 acres.
Same kind of style though, same idea. Where are the hazards at? Mitigate for those, and just build that black and get around it.
How long does that take?
Something like that. I mean, it really depends on the humidity and how spicy the fire is that day, how slow we need to go, how good it's burning back in. We might need to help it along a little bit, but I mean, it's hours. It's half a day for sure, and then you're making sure it's all out at the end. So there's a mop up section that we do. So
I'll tell you, Travis does a lot of rock hounding, so he squirts a lot of rocks to see what it looks like. He'd be great to follow those ashes with his squirt bottle. Go out there.
He'd be on.
We'll send him over to you.
Yeah, like he's swatting flies.
Yep.
How soon do you guys measure your success in a burn? I don't know, maybe that's a dumb question, but I guess do you burn it like burn it and then you wait a season and then you hope to Christ it works? Or is it, do you get like immediate satisfaction and understanding that this is going to be a spot on burn?
Well, any fire without injuries or breakdowns is a successful fire. So we'll start there. We do an after action report and we celebrate that and talk about any problems we had immediately. And then we kind of I have a drone here in the office, but we also might drive out and just kind of try to figure out what percentage of the unit burned. You know, is it 90%? Is it 100%? Is it 50-50? You know, and that kind of tells us a little something about, you know, none of those are bad if that's your goal, right? But depending on the conditions and what you're doing. But so there's that, what percentage, we track that. We also, depending on the time of year, we'll go out and look and see if there's any animals that we unintentionally burnt up, you know, like maybe there's snakes out that we didn't expect. You know, we try to burn when things are dormant most of the time. So it's good to just walk out there. You know, maybe it was a hot November for some reason, and, you know, so it's just a good note to have. A lot of our fire is around invasive species, right? So we want to we have some plots that actually our team is putting in this summer to do some more long-term monitoring with that brush management. Okay. So like, did we just top kill it? Was there enough heat to actually, you know, autumn olive is an invasive shrub that we have here. So did it actually kill that autumn olive? Well, you might not know until the next spring to see if it greens up again. So we can mark those or make a little monitoring transect and then go back there and take a look and say, yeah, we got 90% of them didn't resprout, so they're dead. You know, that's a great success. But there are a lot of factors. Was it hot enough? What wind direction was going that day?
Do you ever just walk up and pull the things you don't want there?
Yeah, there's a few if you see them, but often that's rare because a lot of the invasives just occur in mass numbers, and it's but there's a few, like I see invasive teasel or
in the area you patrol is just so big, you can't just keep an eye on everything. You'll find clusters of invasive species in places.
Yeah, we have a pretty advanced, our team, you know, we use GIS software for mapping, and so there's an app that they have called Field Maps. And so if we're out, we always have like a little iPad or your phone with you. If you see something, you can map it out, and that takes the coordinates, create a little polygon around it. And say something. It's just in the database, and so then we can always go back there and treat it when it's appropriate, or go back the next year and monitor it. If we did treat it, is it dead? And so we have a huge years and years of information about that. So we're always adding to that and revisiting those sites. So it it's a strategic way to manage a large area, right? To try to understand. Yeah.
Got some technology coming into it.
I wish I had that kind of eye where I know, like, oh, well, that's a so-and-so plant. That shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, you know, it is intimidating to think about all the native species. Like, you know, there's 600 native species, as you said. But, you know, the portfolio of invasive species is smaller than that. So a lot of times we initially train, like if we have interns or seasonal staff that are coming on board, we really need them to knock the invasives, you know, ID down, right? And so that's a smaller ask typically. And a lot of them are real obvious because they're in dense patches, and, you know, but, you know, there might be some native lookalikes we got to teach them, but those are easier to pick up.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Kankakee Sands and everything around it is just like an incredible range of wildlife. From, bison, which we haven't even gotten into yet, and I hope we do with this question, but bison to butterflies and beavers to bees, you guys, it is truly incredible considering, I just watched a video this morning going through your guys' history of what this area looked like. And Brad or Travis, if you haven't seen it, it was just plowed farmland. And the idea that, you know, Trevor put out that video where he looked happy as a clam with all these, with the flower bloom, and knowing how many species are out there. It's just absolutely incredible. So I can see the incredibleness from this standpoint, like looking at it 30 years later, like this is where I come into this picture. But I was just wondering if you could share kind of some standout stories, not just stories, but the really good stories, the success stories that you've had in your time there, or that you've learned about before you were there. that really truly reflect the restoration of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can talk all about the bison for the next 30 minutes if you please.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I would say the bison are obviously a success story, just to even get them here, because they were not a part of the original plan for here. So, but once you reach a certain scale, right, as we've been talking, how big the site is, right, compared to, what's available elsewhere in the Midwest, there comes a time where I just can't, our team here, we just can't replicate, the same processes that nature can provide. And so, the bison are really a partner on the restoration because they are like fire and they've evolved with the prairie for thousands of years. So it's just one of those pieces that we felt we needed to get back on the landscape to really kind of raise the ceiling of what's possible. Bison are often called a keystone species.
We know all about them. Yep.
Yeah. I like to think of them more as like a foundational, like Jenga block, because you can have a prairie without bison, right? Mm-hmm. You can't put a bison on every prairie. Prairies do exist without bison, but grazing and that disturbance really lays the foundation to kind of stack other pieces to layer it, right? It makes the ceiling of the potential of biodiversity a little bit higher, and so. In the areas that we have bison, you see a lot of grassland birds that are very happy there, right? Because they like that mosaic that the bison create. Some birds love just straight tallgrass prairie, but the bison graze that down and will leave these little pockets of bare soil. They'll wallow out there, right? Or they'll tamp down the grass, by grazing it and allow for other flowers and stuff to take up that real estate. And some birds just love that. Some birds just need that short grass. Some of them need the bare ground, right? That you just wouldn't get if all you had was tall stuff.
Yeah. More diverse makes the plant life
exactly. So we're just interjecting that heterogeneity, as they say.
Damn, nice word.
Yeah, it's a big.
That just lit me up.
Yeah. And that's what conservation is about. It's like the micro topography and those small things that add up to the bigger picture. And the bison are great engineers at that, whether they know it or not. And I just can't replicate that. So that's a great success story. But bison themselves are, they're a great conservation story across North America, as you guys probably know. And so our herd, helps with that. We're a conservation herd. We think about genetics of bison and what we can provide, in a natural space for them here. They're on the Indiana state seal, the bison is. I don't know if so. I mean, a lot of people think out west, right? Bison, elk and all these things, but, the
it
bison
always made me sad
here.
to look at that seal. Like,
well, and it's like,
here anymore.
It is kind of ironic. The bison's running away from the guy, chopping wood. So it is kind of like this thing. But
piece of history there.
But at least, they acknowledge, bison back then in the early 1800s and certainly before that, were present at some extent, right? The eastern tallgrass prairie shot over here, and the bison, if you ever look at the historic bison range, it went all the way to the Appalachians and down to Florida. So
did they wander the forests as well?
Well, forest is a word that, is a complex word, because is a savanna a forest? A savanna has grassland underneath it.
I think just like a lot of trees with a canopy.
Right. But I think it's a relic of living today. Also, like a lot of fire hasn't happened in the East. A lot of the woodlands you see, traveling around Indiana or Illinois or whatever are kind of unhealthy. They're very overgrown, right?
Yeah, because when they grow back, they're really small and really close together. There's just hundreds of them.
Yeah, and the idea of a savanna landscape across a lot of the Midwest has been lost because those have just been overgrown and they're filled with honeysuckle now and different things. And so I think there were a lot of grasslands, but then the bison also, would have went to the southeast where there's different types of grasslands down there than like the eastern tallgrass prairie. The rolling hills of Kentucky had a lot of prairie, right? So the Buffalo Trace, is down through southern Indiana and down into Kentucky. So like there's a lot of history there that is just, distant memory. But
so would some of it have been because there were large populations of buffalo this far east, they would have maintained more grassland, and then as we kind of pushed them west, more trees and larger plants
I
and
think
stuff grow?
it's hard to pinpoint exactly what, other than humans, right, affecting the landscape,
chopping down everything.
Yeah, I think, historically there was, and even, and today there's a lot more bison in the Great Plains, right? That's where the prairie is, the short grass prairie out there is significant. So the millions of bison we talk about, tens of millions, the bulk of them were certainly out west. And, they would have come through this way. Anywhere there's grass, I think there were bison, at some point.
Yeah.
And would have helped to curate, keep some things open and create that disturbance. It's hard to imagine, you could probably see it in some of our national parks or when there's herds, what a whole herd of buffalo grazing and wallowing and going through. I mean, that's going to really alter the landscape in a way that's even hard to envision now. Like they're going to
plow coming through.
Exactly. They're going to reset, right?
Yeah, even in the wintertime, right? Like they're digging through the snow and the dirt. Yeah,
and they're migrating through different parts and doing that in patches, and so like there would be a legacy of that. But then also the hand in hand with the prescribed fire, right? That losing the prescribed fire and the bison at the same time, also altered the woodland regime significantly. Obviously up in the Appalachians and places like that, you start to, true forest, right? But even those, when we look today, are significantly different. No passenger pigeons, no chestnut. It's like very wild. So you really got to squint to see that. But
what's your like? I believe you guys are well over 100 in the herd right now.
It ebbs and flows a little bit, but yeah, that's kind of what we aim for. We try to, as
you
a general,
want to keep it at 100.
Yeah, we try to aim. We try to aim for about 10 acres per bison. We feel like that's because when you have bison in contained space, right? You have to. You're trying to dial in the grazing impact, to where you're not overgrazing, and you don't want it to be a mud pit. You still want the flowers and the stuff to be there. So, like, there's a tweaking that needs to happen there. But for us, we feel like that's a good max to support the kind of prairie that we think should be here and get that level of disturbance that you're seeing we do bird surveys out in the pasture. We do plant surveys. We collect seed and stuff out there. We're out there seeing stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of the sweet spot for us.
Like nice. You gotta there has to be enough land to where they can move on and things can recover and before they move back.
Yeah. And so we try to experiment with patch burn grazing too. So we'll burn a little bit of the bison pasture, and we know they love the fresh grass after a fire. And so they'll spend a lot of their time grazing there, which by default will give the other areas of the pasture a little bit of rest to recover, and then we have a couple pastures that we can rotate them in seasonally too. So to again do kind of the same thing. So yeah, you have constraints that they're not a roaming wild animal where they could freely make those decisions. So it is a stewardship effort, to kind of work with the bison to kind of mimic the best that we can.
How many did you didn't start with 100? You started with what, 12 or 13 or something?
23.
Oh, 23.
Originally from South Dakota, from another TNC preserve, which was, and then since then we've got a couple more groups from Wind Cave National Park directly to kind of bolster our genetics and get that herd. But then most of them have been born here, outside of those original animals.
That's awesome.
Do you know, are there hurdles, like legal hurdles, taking them across state lines and getting them to Indiana? Not
particularly. I think, there's there's just some things to be aware of, about who your neighbors are and what their feelings, about bison are. It's not everybody, understands, what a conservation herd, looks like and is about and has questions about, they see them on TV like the rest of, so like how are
people in Yellowstone.
Yeah, making sure our fencing is, public, feels good about that. But yeah, no, I think it's been pretty straightforward.
Clean their hooves off before they get in so they don't bring any invasive species.
Yeah. Scrub your feet, bison.
Yeah.
So any other? I know I definitely wanted you to touch on the bison, and I'm pleased about that. And if there isn't, then so be it. But I imagine that you can give us another grand story.
Yeah, I talked about the Regal Fritillary, a little bit. So that's another success story where it was only in one pocket. It was at Beaver Lake Nature Preserve, and now we're we still got a ways to go with it, but now that we've kind of surrounded that with more habitat and are working on providing what it needs, it's slowly expanding out from that little fragmented patch that it was at. So we're seeing it sometimes miles away. Yeah.
So if we go there, is there a chance? Like, should I keep my eye out?
I mean, in the summer, there's definitely a chance. I think there are certain little hot spots that it prefers, and it's 8,000 acres, but the butterfly doesn't prefer all 8,000 acres. It has a subset of that it likes to use. So it's like trying to hone in on that a little bit. Slender glass lizards is another one that was historically just in these little pockets, but
that's what I call Travis, my little slender glass lizard.
You should look him up there.
I told you I'm a nickname guy.
You whispered
Trevor.
in my ear in the tent that one time.
Oh, jeez.
That looks like a snake more than a lizard.
Right. They don't have legs, but they are a unique sand kind of sand prairie, and we are kind of the last stronghold in Indiana, as far as I know, for the macro site for that species. So, that's a really exciting one. There you go.
Wow. There it is.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Technology. We can see the snake.
It's a lizard.
No, it's a lizard.
It's a glass lizard.
Son of a gun.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What about hellbender salamanders?
Do not have those, unfortunately.
I won't hold it against you.
Okay.
They're toughies.
Yeah. There's so many little individual stories, and there's more things we'd like to do. We certainly don't have all the pieces that would have been here, and some of them are just so hard they're just rare everywhere, and it's like, getting the permits, getting the research required to do something like that is a heavy lift. So always trying to think about creative ways to partner and enrich this place a little bit more. But the grassland birds, I would say, is the other one that is just like, again, thinking about what was here historically and now what we do have, the response is, it's incredible. And I would, Henslow sparrows, dick thistles, meadow larks, grasshopper sparrows, bobolinks, things like that. Those are rare pretty much everywhere.
You're starting to sweat the more birds you name.
Brad wants to get up right now and drive your way.
I haven't got a bobolink yet.
Grab his camera and jump in the car.
I've already been planning on, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be out there taking some photos.
Bobolinks are probably my favorite. They sound like R2-D2 when they. It's a wild
speaking
bird.
of getting out there, how do you get out there? Go visit.
Yeah, well, we're open all the time. I mean, so we just invite people to come hike the trails and come see stuff. But yeah, we're in just off of US 41. Just north of Morocco, Indiana, in Newton County here. And, it's the prairie changes every 2 weeks, I say. So there's always something new to see, even in the wintertime. Who doesn't like seeing bison in the wintertime? But we also,
man, dude.
Yeah.
That'll make for some good photos.
Exactly.
Makes for some good looking.
We also have, during that time, a lot of hawks and short-eared owls that come down from more of the Arctic and stuff. Owls. So it's like, it's a pretty, there's a lot going on there. And, but yeah, like right now, all the grassland birds are out there and, thriving. So And if you like wetlands, birds, we have a lot. That's another six. We have often nesting sandhill cranes here, and but I'm partial to the secretive marsh birds. You're familiar with that group? Your soras and your rails.
I've been wanting to see both of those. I haven't got one yet.
You can hear tons of sora. They're a very recognizable call, but I can see lots of those in a given day if I'm patient. American bittern is another one that they have this crazy like gulping noise that they make, and early in the morning, if you're willing to get out before sunrise, you can hear them out there calling. It's a wild bird, but anyway, so many wetlands have been destroyed, right? That those birds are just desperate for habitat and high quality habitat. So like it's great.
Pretty quickly. I mean, once that specific habitat sort of takes hold.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I probably can't prove that necessarily, but I think migrating birds have in their, just as my theory, right? I think knowing that the Grand Kankakee Marsh was here historically, I got to think there's this kind of an innate sense that they're coming through looking for these areas, right? We know the Jasper-Pulaski area just east of us, like there's a great sandhill crane migration that goes through there, right?
Yep.
I got to imagine they were also using the Grand Kankakee Marsh when it was intact. So I think there's kind of this innate sense that a lot of birds migrate, where their parents did, where their grandparents did, just my theory. Yeah. So I think they find us. And then once they find us, they come back. And, the key is, are they nesting here? Are they thriving here? A lot of it's just a stopover, but going north. But our grassland birds are here, all summer. Yeah. So
damn right.
I'm sure they're like, oh my gosh, this is in Indiana? This is incredible.
We finally found it. This is what my parents have been telling me about all these years.
It's back.
So Travis did bring up like how to get to the park and all that. But as we were kind of emailing back and forth with Chip and you, Chip did mention that you guys have and have had, thank you, quite some improvements to like making visiting your guys' preserve even easier, even better, those sorts of things. Could you share with our listeners and potential visitors what some of those might be and what they can expect?
Yeah, this kind of ties back to our conversation about park versus conservation, and we want to invite people in for that immersive experience. I got a couple kids and I don't want to go to a trail without a bathroom or some shade, all that much with them. And so there's some key areas around our preserve, right, that, we know people like to visit a lot. The bison viewing area, our welcome area off of US 41, our trailheads, right? So how can we, kind of support an experience there it's going to be accessible to folks that want to enjoy, take some of the friction out of that, and so we did put up some pavilions with some picnic tables. We redid all of our signage to tell a lot about the history of this site and some of the iconic species to make that easy and digestible for folks if they want to learn more, see what they might see out there. We really, our site's pretty big, so wayfinding around is important. Making sure we got clear, concise maps. We got a couple bathrooms, vault toilets out there, nice. And we get a lot of people that just want to come and stay a while and absorb. I think whether you're a photographer or I saw somebody painting watercolors the other day out here. So
nice.
We got some seating. We get a lot of people that might be have some mobility issues that want to come enjoy nature. Nature's for everybody. So try to make that a little bit easier. And so. Awesome. This is part of our flagship preserve idea that TNC the Nature Conservancy tried to identify across the country, really. Where do we want to really invite people in and enhance that accessibility and that experience? And Kankakee Sands is one of those spots in the Midwest that we decided makes sense to invest in and invite people. We already have a lot of outreach and education that we've been doing and inviting the community in. here. So it's really amplified our programs and allowed for that passive experience when staff aren't available, right, to really like lock in and stay a while, hopefully.
Yeah. You mentioned just kind of getting the community on board with the bison, making sure they're comfortable, those sorts of things. What has the community, I don't know, like, you know what I'm trying, like, what is the community?
Like,
what's the response been? Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah. I think early on they were, you know, I wasn't here, but I think anytime a large, you know, preserve or landowner changes, right, you're obviously skeptical. I grew up in a rural community myself and saw similar things, and so I think there's an onus on us to prove that we're a community asset and we're willing to engage with the community, right, and try to be valued and valuable. And so we do spend a lot of time thinking about where do we show up in our community, who are we partnering with, how can we engage with the school kids and the local efforts. You know, we've done some high school internship programs with our partners here. We invite people out to do, learn more about the bison. We have volunteers that meet people on the weekends and answer questions, right? We do outreach events, you know, educational. Sometimes there's stewardship work days. We try to be upfront with everybody. And, you know, I think all of us here at the Nature Conservancy, I would say, and probably you guys, you probably all have some sort of childhood experience that maybe connected you to nature in a way. And so I'm certainly, I know I do. And so I think, you know, that can we provide that experience for somebody, you know, even if it's just a few people, right? That Kankakee Sands tapped into something for them. And, you know, that's a lasting, lifelong impact. And it's hard to measure that, but we know it's happening. And so
think the more people you get out to go see that, I mean, that's kind of what our podcast is all about, is to just realize how beautiful it is out there. And, you know, you'll get people that want to protect it and, you know, take care of it better themselves, no matter where they are.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, me and Patty were just we did a 125-mile kayak trip down the All Sable River in Michigan. And we would come across, a lot of them were boat-in only, kayak-in only campsites. And we'd come across a campsite with like 10 canoes stacked up. And it was like a whole family. And Patty said several times, he's like, they're creating some core memories right there.
Oh, yeah.
Those kids are lucky.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you don't protect or care about what you don't value, and so, you know, that's one way we can provide that, and you know, and I think that's been successful. So
I think I'm sold. So guys, we're going to Kankakee Sands.
Trevor, we'll see you there.
I'll never be able to pronounce it, but
hey, so just because I know that this is historically it was what it should have been, but when you guys bought it, it was fully plowed land. It was agriculture land, and living in Indiana, being a primarily agricultural state, and looking through your website and listening to you talk today, I know that you guys are diving a little bit into the waterways, trying to solve some of those problems. But I guess my question is kind of more like, we have the community engagement and you guys have worked there. What has the process been like with the agriculture side of that? And I'm not trying to put anybody on blast or anything, but I imagine that there was some fight, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I said I wasn't here, but I mean, here's what I do know is that, you know, we didn't plan it all overnight, right?
Right.
So it took decades. And so we did farm it for a long time, right? And kind of phase it out. So certainly in using our neighbors and, you know, local folks to do that were already doing that, you know? And so trying to do that, we have a lot of great conservationists in the ag space here in Newton County. And
Awesome.
You know, I think when you think about conservation in the Midwest or in the larger landscape, you know, that's where a lot of the gains are, right? Working with the agricultural industry and trying to find ways to partner with them and, you know, see where we can, you know, a lot of land that's in ag, is in important corridors, right? And a lot of, I come from an agriculture community myself. And I think a lot of people, they count themselves as stewards of the land as I do, right? And so a lot of them are sympathetic to that.
Yeah,
and,
my dad's a farmer. Yeah. He's the one that taught me, like, take care of the land.
Right. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I get that.
You know?
Yeah, and so we use tractors and have things that are out there planting at different times of the year. So we're doing. There's a similar vibe to some of the flow of our work, and most of our neighbors are farmers. So I think we work to cross TNC to cultivate that, right, as an important group, and just that they're our neighbors. So
damn right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Good. So as you guys farmed the land, did the profits that you made, you just rolled those back into the conservation effort and the replanting and?
Yeah. So that's definitely one model, right? Is to you lease it out, and
eventually your profits would just keep getting lower and lower until
exactly right. Seed is very expensive to purchase in native. It's not just, you can't just go to your local nursery and get a lot of the stuff that we have. So we had to kind of build our own nursery and our own seed beds and start to harvest it ourselves. And there's some infrastructure around that. And then there are some native growers that you can work with that will grow out, native genotype stuff for you, or have that seed supply. But it's a very expensive proposition at scale, right? You can buy little kits and stuff for your yard, but when you're doing thousands of acres, that adds up quick.
Oh, howdy, I bet.
Yeah, and we're not the only one in the Midwest doing it. So it's like there's a demand issue. There's a supply and demand issue there too, right? There might be a big Prairie going in somewhere else in the Chicagoland area that we're competing with. So it's like you got to.
Where would you get seeds from?
So there are native nurseries or seed that they specialize in providing local. They can tell you which county it came from, how it was collected, and can give you that kind of level information. And but then there's also sharing amongst partners, like whether that's DNR or a forest preserve district or something like that. We certainly can swap seed and be creative in that space. Maybe they got something that we don't have, and we have something they don't have, and right, that's kind of that all-in-one macro site level thinking that we try to pull off.
There's so much that goes into it. That's wild. Never would have thought.
Each step is very complex. Yeah, can be.
So I'm glad you brought up macro.
Okay.
Because this gets me to my fun question.
All right.
As I was doing my own research, I found that you, maybe in the last few years, have kind of dove into a new passion, and that being macro photography. And as we've discussed, we also have a photographer on staff, Mr. Brad Greer. And I'm curious as to not just about the photography, but I guess just to give it some context is when we started taking photography birding wise, it really taught me more about the environment. It got me outside a lot, especially locally, from Eagle Marsh to Lindenwood to Acres Land Trust, whatever, all the things they own. It really got me out and about and got me hiking, got me looking at things a bit differently. So in terms of your macro photography, so this is kind of a two-parter. One, how do you think, or has that made any sort of impact on your understanding of the environment or your love of the environment around you? And then two, has that helped to kind of push the conservation efforts or the restoration efforts going on at Kankakee Sands?
Definitely. All of those things. Hell yeah. Yeah. So bison are big visual, right? But they're one species. Most of the species that we protect and provide habitat for are small and go unnoticed. So most of them are insects for reality, or small little flowers that no one pays attention to. So macro really, I think for my mental health even, just causes me to slow down and pay more attention, be present, and focus in a way that nothing else, really can. Because you might need to stand in a spot for a while to notice something, right? And then when it pops out, it's fascinating, and it's taking pictures at different angles, and like you're trying not to scare it, but like you're the right detail you're trying to get. And then if you're a scientist, you know, you're trying to get the right picture to get the ID of that species. I love iNaturalist, so I'm posting all my bug photos on there and trying to figure out what they are.
They need a Merlin for insects.
Where can we go?
Sounds like it's iNaturalist.
iNaturalist can be like, if you have a picture, it'll suggest based on your local area what it probably is. You can do a little further research to verify that. But anyway, I found this cool thing called land snorkeling. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
And that's what I think I am with my macro, or just in general. It's kind of like taking the time to kind of like slow down and kind of savor all the stuff, right? And like, you know, a lot of times when I'm hiking, I'm just, got my Garmin watch, and I'm like, how many miles, and, I'm pumping out. But it's a whole different experience to try to go on a trail with a macro camera and just try to document every little thing, because people are just walking by and missing all that stuff. And it's amazing. It might be the same park you go to every day, right? Or in your backyard. If you just look at it from that point of view and that angle, you're going to see things that you never saw before. So, and then it unlocks a lot of other things. You start to see relationships differently in the landscape. A lot of insects are very specific to their plant host. And so you see, I got this dogbane, in our wetland. All right, that's cool. Oh, well, I was just out there before I started talking to you guys and ran into, there's the dogbane beetle that sits, it's named after that plant because it's on that plant in the late summer. And it's one of the it's a very shiny looking beetle. It's very colorful. But I know that relationship now that I didn't know before. A lot of our threatened and endangered species or species of concern are insects, or, they're also great indicators of a healthy habitat. A lot of our invasive species don't have associations with insects. They did not evolve here, right? So all the spotted lanternfly is one of those things that's from Asia, but like honeysuckle is also from the Amur Valley in China, I believe. Whatever insects we're using it over there don't occur here, and so it's kind of like a dead zone when you see a forest of some. A lot of these insects did not evolve with these plant communities. So one example that we have here, moths. I love moths, for example.
Okay.
Butterflies get all the attention. That's fine. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. But, maybe there's 150, 160 butterfly species in Indiana. If you're really good and can find them all, there's probably 3,000 to 5,000 different moth species.
Wow.
So the diversity is incredible. We have, had done some research here. We have some volunteers that work on that. We do some sheet lighting here pretty regularly. We have almost 1,500 moth species that have been documented at Kankakee Sands alone. Wow. So to me, that just unlocks a whole nother way of knowing about nature that just is not, it's just not regularly understood and taught about. There's just so many layers. We think of big, coarse things, but it's really those finer details that macro hones in on that I just love. And I'm always learning, right? Always seeing new things.
Just today, I was out and taking photos of flowers. There's this park right next to me. They always have they'll plant sunflowers in a field, but then there's all kinds of wildflowers going too. And it's like you were saying, you zoom in on a flower just to kind of see the flower, and then you realize there's a dozen little insects crawling all over it. And then you look at every flower, and they all have dozens of things crawling all over it. And it is super cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, there's always something new to see. I'm never going to see all the insects here at Kankakee Sands. I'm never going to see all the moths, but they're easily, that sense of discovery is always present when you're doing macro photography. You can see new birds every year if you try hard and things, but it's a limited number in North America that you could possibly see. It's pretty much unlimited, and there's a lot of undiscovered species or species we don't even know what their host plant is. We don't know anything about them because no one's studied them yet. So
that is so cool, dude.
Yeah.
It's just endless curiosity. If you have endless curiosity, we talk a lot about what we do on this podcast, and we try to promote, like Travis said earlier, just getting outside and trying to promote different avenues of doing that, whether or not it's hunting or birding or rock hounding or whatever it might be. And it just seems like another one of those avenues that if you're curious, if you're into it, you can go look at insects till you're blue in the face and discover all day long.
And it doesn't have to be insects, of course. Like iNaturalist, which is that, it's the equivalent of eBird, but it covers everything. You can put birds on there, but I use it as my travel journal. Basically, I'm just taking little observations with my phone or my camera, and it logs the coordinates where I saw that at the time of day, the date I saw it. So, man, if I want to go, if I saw something really cool, and I need to go back down to that preserve to see that again, I know exactly when I saw it, and I can return to it. And it's kind of the phenology tracking too, and it's part of a larger database. So I can see your observations, right? If I'm going to a new place to go hiking or camping, I can see what's the cool stuff people have seen here, species wise, and I can make my plans around that a little bit and go check that out. So it really just adds so many layers of immersiveness and knowledge to a place maybe you've never been without a lot of effort, really.
Agreed. Well, guys, how you feeling?
Trevor, you were absolutely wonderful. Yes. Like, you piqued my curiosity about just how quickly things can come back to life.
Yeah, I would say that's the future. There are very few remnant pieces to protect left, right? We've got to kind of reclaiming and creating these new spaces and trying to heal the landscape in different ways, creative ways often. If some of these systems and species are going to thrive and survive into the future. And so restoration is kind of the future.
Keep up the good work. It sounds like you're totally into it and you really care about it, and it's a passion, and you're going to be successful out there.
Yeah, we salute you, homie.
No, thank you.
Really quick, I just want to give you the final kind of statement. I just want, if there's anything you want to leave out there for our listeners, for anybody that's going to be, that's interested in this sort of thing, is there anything you want to leave?
I mean, I think I'll kind of restate you don't have to travel very far to find something interesting in nature. If you get outside and lead with curiosity, and I think anybody can do that, and everybody's better for it if they make that part of their plan. So,
just
damn right, brother.
Walk out your back door.
Just walk out.
Something.
Yep.
All right. Well, Trevor, I think we owe you a big round of applause. You were absolutely wonderful. It makes me unbelievably happy to have you on here. We'll be joining you in Kankakee Sands, and I hope to see you there.
I'd like to shake your hand, sir.
All right. Come on by.
Thank you very much, guys. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, I think that's a great episode. So keep on sauntering, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.